I don't think that plagiarism is a problem at BU more than it is at other schools per se, but I do think that it's something that's a problem in US universities, in general.
I don't think plagiarism is a problem at BU. I think especially in SMG, I know we sign a strict academic code of conduct, and I think that really sets a standard of what our expectations are.
I think people are more likely in this age to plagiarize.
It is more tempting because of the internet.
You can find papers on subjects that you're writing if you're having writer's block, and it's very tempting to look up what other people have written.
I feel like even if some people do plagiarize, it might not be intentional just because there's just so many resources we have. Whereas if you, back in the day, if you had 3 books for your research paper and those were your only 3 sources, that it would be much easier to say, oh, I got this from this source, instead of saying, reading a whole bunch of things and saying, oh yeah, I thought of that, right? You think that you might have thought of it when you really didn't.
The college notions of plagiarism is totally antiquated. It's not up to speed. Teachers aren't hip with internet culture.
I think that teachers do know what's all going on out there, and maybe students don't always realize that.
My understanding of plagiarism is if you just get something offline, you exactly copy that. Or if you reword it a little bit and it's basically the same idea, you should still cite it in your paper and they should still know who wrote it.
I think it's a thin line sometimes, and students have a hard time understanding what plagiarism is.
I just recently found out, not that I've done it, but that you could plagiarize yourself, which I had no idea exists. So I think there's a basic level knowledge of it, but I didn't know a lot of the in-depth stuff about it.
I use Wikipedia a lot.
I will admit I use it for the theories and the small ideas, but I wouldn't use it actually in a paper.
I think students use it as a credible resource, which is probably not a good thing.
When you go to a page and you find links there, a lot of times they cite their sources and you can go directly to those sources and then check them out.
I know a lot of teachers who do put their papers through a site that checks to see if any of the papers match up with anything online.
I think it's good because everyone in the class feels the pressure to write their own paper, and it creates a fairness across the board.
There's definitely a point where you realize oh, this is my real life. What I'm doing now really matters.
I think they'd plagiarize just because they're not confident in their work and they just think they'd get an easy A if they use someone else's words.
The risks totally outweigh any benefits it would have. The repercussions are really, really harsh. It's just not worth it.
It's very important to create our thinking, our own paper. If we do a lot just the copy-paste while we study nothing.